and welcome to Montessori for Everybody. What we're going to be talking about today is an approach to bring the Montessori method into manageable form. Whether you are seeking to use Dr. Maria Montessori's ideas in a classroom setting, in a childcare environment, or in your own home, it's very important that you have an approach to this that you feel like you are being comprehensive in the way that you're using it. It certainly is an approach to education that can seem overwhelming. There's a lot of attitudes, there's a lot of materials in preparing the environment. There are many things to keep track of to do it effectively. I'm going to suggest that there is a way to look at this method that is simple and yet comprehensive, but not too simple. What I'm going to suggest is a four-step approach to how you can keep the Montessori philosophy in mind in any interactions and preparations for interactions with children that you have. The first step in this is to start from a wisdom perspective and to notice the greatest need. Now, this encompasses a lot of different aspects of the Montessori approach to education. One way that we talk about the way that we do Montessori is by connecting the child or the learner to the environment. This has been imagined as a triangle with the child at the top, at the apex of the triangle, and the adult, the guide, the mentor as one of the foundation points, and the environment as the other one. If you're going to do that, the first thing you have to do is take a wisdom perspective. A wisdom perspective has to do with you as an adult and being a prepared adult in the environment. When we talk about the environment in Montessori, we talk about the prepared environment. You've organized the space around the child to help them to learn most effectively. What I'm going to suggest to you is that that adult, the other part of the base of the triangle, is part of that prepared environment, and only part of that prepared environment if the adult is prepared to be a support to the child. One of the things that adult must always do is take a wisdom perspective and notice the greatest need. Now, one of the ways that you do that is by preparing yourself as an observer. In a later segment, we're going to talk about observation, true observation, where your only task that you're doing at that time is sitting with some kind of note-taking material available to you, observing the children. No interaction, just the observation. Right now, I'm just going to refer to that because previous observations that have happened will inform your decisions at any time. But when you're in the environment, whether it's your home or a classroom, ready to decide how to interact with the child, what is most important that you do is act from wisdom. Now, the most important thing in terms of many of Montessori's teachings in deciding what is a wise choice to do is choosing not to interrupt a child who is engaged. This is probably one of the most profound observations, discoveries that Montessori brings to parents and to educators. If a child is involved with what they're doing, whether that is a task in the classroom, building with Legos in your home, drawing a drawing, writing their name, and they are engaged, their full attention is with that task, one of the worst things you can possibly do is to interrupt them. Now, I want to clarify this. Please notice that I'm talking about a child engaged in a productive task. I'm not talking about a child in front of a television. I'm not talking about a child who is in any way being disrespectful. If they are being uncareful with the things that they're using, or if they're being disrespectful to a sibling, there is nothing that should stop you from interrupting those things. What I'm talking about is when you notice a child is learning. Because if a child is engaged in a task in front of them, fully engaged, they're learning. You may not be able to tell exactly what they're learning, and it's not really important from my perspective that you know that right off the bat. What's important is that you recognize something important is going on. And the wisest thing you can do is let that continue and not to interrupt it. If you are looking from a wisdom perspective and noticing the greatest need for your help or your intervention is not with any child who is engaged in productive work. Now, the greatest need may be nearby. It may be some children who are being disruptive and who you need to interrupt or engage so you protect that work that's going on with the child who is doing something productive. When we look for what's most important to intervene in the environment, when we look for where is the most important place to intervene in the environment, when we look for what is the greatest need, first and foremost, we need to realize that we can't really teach anything. We can present information to the children, we can prepare the environment for them to be able to learn, but only they can do the learning. So we need to make sure that once that started happening, once they've made a choice to put that most valuable commodity, their focused attention, into a task, that we protect that work and that we not interrupt it. Now, I said this is the first step. What I'm going to do over a sequence in our show is talk about 4 important steps that are a way that you can keep the Montessori process going. One way that I do have available to help you to track this, to pull this way of approaching the full Montessori system together is a chart it's part of some learning materials that I have, but it's actually available to you as long as you sign up for our newsletter. If you are willing to share your email address with us and let us inform you of things that we have going on, this is what we'll make available to you in electronic form. It's a PDF and a chart that can help you to envision a way to approach the entire Montessori system. Here we have that triangle that I was mentioning, the child or the learner at the top, the mentor or the adult on one of the foundational parts of the triangle, and the environment on the other. And I give some basic ideas for the most important principles to engage when you're addressing each of these. And I also give a 4-step process, the first of which is to start from a wisdom perspective and notice the greatest need. The first step in the simplified system that I've put together to help people address an entire approach to Montessori is to start from a wisdom perspective and to choose the most important thing that they need to do. What is the most important step or action that needs to be taken? The second step in the process is to find a path to empower the learner. This has to do with using the prepared environment. It has to do with knowing about the child, with understanding how to interact with the child based on that child's needs. There's a lot in this simple task to find a path to empower the learner. It presupposes that you understand the learner, that you understand the developmental stages of the child. It presupposes that you have prepared an environment, that you've made sure that you have the learning tools available so that that child can be as independent and effective as possible. Finding a path to empower the learner implies preparation, but it also implies using information that you have about the most appropriate way to interact with that child or that adult, if the learner we're talking about is an adult, because I do believe the Montessori system can be used when adults are facilitating learning for other adults. Finding that path to empower the learner is what you're seeking to do in the whole process of working with whoever you're teaching. Now, you're going to find that over the course of this show, I use the term teaching pretty sparingly. I do believe that you present learning. I believe that you present learning materials. I believe that you give lessons. But I don't use teacher and teaching very much, because what I see the adult's role in any teaching situation is as a support. You are one more piece of a prepared learning environment. If you're going to foster independence, if you're going to leave as much power as possible in the hands of those who are learning, you're going to have to be willing to take a step back. You're going to have to be willing to fade into the woodwork a little bit and let things like learning materials, math manipulatives, map puzzles, or even books take the forefront in allowing that person to educate themselves while you are a support. You're there when someone falters, when they're not understanding what to do next, when they don't understand how to use the material, to step in and give the instruction, to give the direction, to present those things and help them to use them more effectively. But it's not your role to be center stage. If that's what's appealing to you, I'm going to suggest that the Montessori approach to education is probably going to chafe. Doesn't mean that it's not the path for you, but along the way, I think that's something you're going to have to look at. Is, are you willing to take a step back? Are you willing for it not to be your show, but for center stage to be that learner, and then whatever you put in front of them is designed to help them be powerful within their own right? Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about your prepared learning environment. What I have found is that occasionally I run into things in the Montessori community that really chafe for me. One of those is any time that I find someone who says you can be prepared to take a Montessori approach to parenting, much less to being the educator who sets up a Montessori classroom. It chafes when I find someone who says you can do that without studying the work of Maria Montessori directly. Now, I'm going to be the first one to tell you that if you just pick up the Montessori Method, that's the book that most obviously is associated with Dr. Montessori, and start reading, you may struggle. It is certainly not the first book that I would suggest that people read. Montessori was writing in 1909 through 1945. This was not language. She grew up using language that is not what we're used to in the year 2013. In addition, most of her books were not written by her directly. Most of her books were lectures that she gave that were transcribed, sometimes by people who were in the lecture, then consulting with her later, sometimes in a whole different variety of situations. But many times, even the words that she was speaking in Italian were being transcribed from a translation into French or English that someone was giving simultaneously, then put back into put back into Italian for Montessori to review, and so on. So what I'm saying to you is that it's not necessarily an easy task to study Montessori in her own words, but it is so worthwhile. From the time that I have encouraged people to do this, I've come through a series of understandings from my own perspective of the best way to approach this. And just recently, in the last few months, I've made another shift in that regard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some suggestions for how to study Montessori in her own words, depending on what your own situation has been. And I'm really going to encourage you, even if this is a little difficult at first, even if reading isn't your favorite thing, and even if her words are a little bit challenging, to take on that challenge and to put the energy into it that's needed. What I'm going to do first is recommend a book called What You Should Know About Your Child. Now, if you order this book, I will have information as a part of this segment that shows you how to order books from the North American Montessori Teachers Association. The one that I'm showing you is not the one that you would end up ordering. When I was getting ready to, when I did recommend this book to some friends, I went on the internet, and I'm assuming I searched Amazon or something, and I was amazed at what the price tag was on it and some other books by Maria Montessori. So anytime you're looking to order a book that's actually written by Montessori. I encourage you to check the website of the North American Montessori Teachers Association. This organization has worked with Association Montessori International, the organization that has kind of been the one to keep Montessori's legacy going, to keep her books available and accessible to the world. So yours won't look like this, but what you'll find is it will be thin. Yes, I do know that I have Post-it notes stuck all over mine, and I thought about taking them off before we filmed this, and I decided, nope, I'm not going to do that. This little book is one of the best resources that I recommend for anyone who's interested in reading Montessori in her own words, but maybe is a little bit daunted if they've picked up the Montessori Method or one of the other thicker, less accessible books. This book was written for parents. That was what this was designed to do, was to help parents to understand the discoveries that Montessori had made and apply them in a home, not necessarily in the classroom. But everything in here is wisdom that will help any person who wants to use Montessori's wisdom in helping their children, whether it's a classroom educator or a parent. So at this point, with rare exceptions, this is the book that I suggest that you start with. Now, the book that I used to suggest is Dr. Montessori's own handbook. The history of this book is that an American person, and I'm not going to say who because I don't want to be, I don't really agree with Dr. Montessori's problem with what happened, and so I'm not going to mention the book in this context. But after Dr. Montessori's first visits to the United States, some people who attended her lectures, who even studied with her in Italy, wrote books about her work. And one of those was a guide to Montessori education, and Montessori didn't appreciate that. So this was in some ways her answer to that book. If someone was going to write a simplified guide to what she was doing, she wanted it to be herself. And I'm thrilled that she did. I don't agree with all of her criticisms of the book this was an answer to, but I'm glad that she was critical so that she put this together. If your introduction to Montessori has been visiting a school, if you've had the opportunity to maybe be a parent volunteer in your child's Montessori school, or you've been an assistant in a Montessori school, so the Montessori environment is something that you're already pretty familiar with, this may be the best book for you to start with, because it does help you to understand all those amazing, fascinating, and sometimes very confusing materials in the Montessori classroom. So this is Dr. Montessori's own handbook, and it's also a great place to start. Now, what I hope is that after you have gone through those books that are a little bit easier, that you will move on to Montessori's work that I consider to be her masterwork. I'm not the only one who considers that, but that may not be the only work of hers that some people consider to be most important, and that is the absorbent mind. This was one of the works that she did put together a little bit later, and contains almost all of her most important discoveries, almost all of her most important understandings of children and the environment, and even things like the birth process, how we should support children when they're in the process of being born. So I hope that you will take time to move through some of the easier books and get to this one. I will, over the course of this show, talk about Montessori. You'll get exposed to some quotations from her works that I think will help you to appreciate them even more. But if you want to apply her principles in the home or in the classroom, it's very important that you read her in her own words. The question of freedom and discipline are connected with work. Given the necessary freedom, suitable materials, and environment, what the child longs for is work. When the environment, as in the houses of children, induces and prompts the required activity, the problem of discipline solves itself. Maria Montessori in What You Should Know About Your Child. The love of activity, the yearning for freedom, the urge for obedience, the impulse to conform to laws which are at the heart of all creation, these qualities make man the unparalleled work in nature. This may seem obscure, but it becomes clear as soon as we go more deeply into details. The child has a mind able to absorb knowledge. He has the power to teach himself. A single observation is enough to prove this. The child grows up speaking his parent's tongue, yet to grown-ups, the learning of a language is a very great intellectual achievement. No one teaches the child, yet he comes to use nouns, verbs, and adjectives to perfection. Maria Montessori in The Absorbent Mind. The last part of our program was filmed at the 2013 International Montessori Congress in Portland. The event was significant because it brought together all the large Montessori associations working together with Association Montessori International to unite the Montessori community. In each of our episodes, in addition to quotations from Maria Montessori's written works, we will feature other resources that will help you use her ideas with your children or students. These will include places to go for information, as well as materials to use in your home or classroom. Some segments, such as the next ones filmed on the exhibitor's floor at the 2013 International Montessori Congress, may appeal to those with children or students of specific ages or specifically to Montessori classroom educators. Segments that capture the energy of live conferences suffer in sound quality, but we think the content is worth it and we hope you do too. Even if you will not be able to take advantage of the AMS conference, be sure to visit their website for many resources that will help any Montessori parents or educators. Consider becoming a member to help support their excellent work. I'm here at the International Montessori Congress in Portland with Heather of Cloca Concepts, and she's going to talk about some of the wonderful materials that I've used in my classroom and I'm so enthusiastic about. So Heather, just tell us what you've got here, even what you've already sold, and how it can help people in their classrooms.
All right, well, our signature item is our timeline scroll. It's 12.5 feet long with 52 tick marks, and it's generic, so anything you can scale, you can put on the timeline. We've scaled it for all of our card sets. We have a series of U.S. history card sets, the presidents, U.S. historical events, Constitution cards in the states, and it can turn into a number line. We have our integer card set. It's 3 leveled command cards. Everything comes with a curriculum guide, suggested presentation, and supplemental materials. To supplement the great lessons, we have our history of numbers and history of writing card sets, and they can be used with or without the timeline. For those people who are looking for a little bit more cultural items, we have our invention card sets that kind of span the gamut of time, from paper invention to sundials to catapults. Then we have our artist card. They're double matching, so you can match the artist or their artwork. And these also can go in the timeline, but you don't have to. And then we have our time scale card curriculum, which teaches students how to scale about chronology, and they also provide a really nice looking vehicle for you to scale anything you might have on the timeline. Our newest product is our Paleolithic Stone Toolkit, which come with some tools. And the cool thing about our kit, aside from nomenclature cards and the tools themselves, are the activity cards, where the students actually use the stone tools to perform an activity early humans might have done. And then for those people who just love beadwork, we have our cosmic bead lines. And it tells the story of the cosmic story. It comes with a card set of commands that tell you how to construct it, and it is a timeline, so when you have completed making it, you can go backwards and count beads and tell when something happened.
Well, and Heather, do tell us about your coordinate graph. That was a real help for me as a teacher who did need to teach that as a part of the curriculum.
That's right. The coordinate graph is unique to our company. It's 4-piece. It comes with a box set, and it comes also with a 3-level command card and 2 green lines with arrows and markers. And it is our most popular product, and it is gone, so I can't show it to you. But it's perfect for, you can begin it lower, but more of an upper elementary work, middle adolescent.
Portland with Ethan King, and he's going to tell us a little bit about natural playgrounds.
All right, Natural Playground started about 15 years ago. We're based out of New Hampshire. We design and build outdoor learning and play environments. We do a lot of work with Montessori's. It fits very well. And essentially, it's equipmentless playground and we not only design but build. And that's about it. You can see some of our products right here. Visit us online at naturalplaygrounds.com, and great to be here.